Non. J'ai parqué dans un chose handicap, là, j'ai pas vu ton...
Oui, je te regarde.
Ah, j'ai point, mais j'ai pas vu ton chose, c'est ton
Et
chat.
je le garde à trait.
Ah, OK.
Parce que moi, quelque chose dans mon visage, là.
Fait qu'une paire de lunettes d'abord.
Ça reflète sur le.
Ouais.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, s'il vous plaît. Yeah.
Je cherche toujours le mic.
Attends, je vais vérifier. Le message, il s'en tu il me semble que la dernière fois, ils l'ont enlevé après.
Oui, ça va être enlevé une fois que.
Qui vont commencer. Et c'est marqué recording, live recording.
Melanie, you know the message at the bottom of the screen where it states the meeting is being recorded by the host? That message is still identified on the screen at our end. Is there a way that that can be removed?
Oh, thanks, Elisa. I was going to say, I don't know. Elisa's coming. She knows how to get rid of it. I can't see that from here.
Yeah, because the person that ended up in that square, you disappeared.
Or it covers the individual?
Oh, thank you.
Voilà.
Magic.
Yeah.
Voilà.
So is there a special button for make anything disappear, or that's what it is?
Here like that.
Okay, so I think I have 6:30 on my watch. We are, okay. And we are live. So welcome to our council meeting. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil. We respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Doki's First Nations. Covered by a Robinson-Huron Treaty, we honor and recognize their historic connection to the land and value their significant contribution in shaping and straightening our communities. Nous soulignons respectueusement que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire désigné dans le traité Robinson-Huron, territoire traditionnel du peuple Anishinaabe et particulièrement des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec cet endroit et nous apprécions leur contribution significative à nos communautés. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest or conflict? Conseiller Yvon?
Madam Mayor, I wish to acknowledge that the fact that at the meetings of July 7th and August 11th, there were a special meeting, and I was not in attendance at these meetings as so indicated in the minutes, and I wish to have that removed. If need be, I'll complete the forms of conflict provided to me from the clerk, if that is the case, but I wish to have that rectified ASAP, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and the issue of the conflict, you'll complete the form and provide to the clerk?
If you wish, oh, yes.
Yes, I think, that's the procedures. Any other conflict or pecuniary interest? None? The resolution to approve the addendum, which we have one item that was added later this afternoon. A mover and a seconder, Conseiller Norm, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Berge and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on September the 6th, 2022 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Ms. Sampavat, carried. Becky, the resolution to adopt the agenda, a mover and a seconder, Councillor Chris, Conseiller Yvonne.
Madam Mayor, may I would like to remove my agenda item 4.1A if possible.
Okay, well, can you allow the resolution to be read first?
Certainly.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on September the 6th, 2022 be approved as presented.
Okay, Conseiller Chris, you had an amendment to the agenda?
Yes, I would just like to, I meant to remove it last week and I just got busy. I forgot it was there. I would like to remove my agenda item 4.1A.
And that was the issue that you wanted clarification for bonusing.
Yeah.
And that's what you want removed. Okay, so you are moving an amendment. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Conseiller Lise? Any objections to the amendment? None? Carried. Before, I know that we have the amendment that was proposed. There's only one item that there's one issue that I'd like to highlight. Since we are adopting an amendment to the agenda, I do know that I submitted an agenda form last Tuesday requesting that we get an update for the OPP lease, the OMAFR lease, seeking the discussion pertaining to the report that we got for the dumping stations in Verner and Sturgeon pertaining to control of water and the operational review that was completed a year ago. It's not on the agenda, unfortunately, but I wanted on record that it did comply with the procedural bylaw because it was information that was previously requested and reports, not necessarily reports, but documentation that had been previously identified that it would come forward or prepared by staff. Conseiller Denis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to address two issues that I put on for the agenda for tonight. And the request was done on August 29th. And these two items were for items that were discussed at previous meetings, such as the River Valley dump, which we were supposed to get a report. So I think there's no time involved. It should be done by now. And the bridge request that the speed reduction that's been on the agenda since the spring. And that was also not put into tonight's meetings. And I think they should have been, but because there's no issues of data collecting or whatever the reason is, but I see other issues on the agenda that are there and mine were before that. So I just like to put that on record also, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Conseiller Denis. And a follow-up will be done to ensure that these items are brought forward at our next meeting. So pertaining to the agenda that was amended, there's no objection in removing 4.1A. Carried. Under delegation and petition, we do have a presentation for this evening pertaining to a request for the installation of a memorial plaque at the wedding boat launch. So I don't see do we have a guest or is it strictly a petition?
Just a petition.
Okay. So we received the entire documentation of what is being asked from Ms. Deborah Perron and requesting permission to be able to place a memorial sign in the memory of her husband, Neil Perron, in the area of the Levine boat launch. Leo went missing from his boat May 26, 2021. Divers located him the following day, approximately 60 feet from the boat launch. They lived in Levine for more than 10 years, and her husband Leo was well known, and for a short time was president of the Levine Community Center before stepping down. And with the request that we have, there is a sample of the sign that was provided. And also we have the signatures of everyone that is endorsing that in support of the family, the requester, that this sign be allowed to be mounted on a specific location as per the design. So since we're receiving this petition with all these signatures this evening, as per procedures, we discuss it at our next committee. So tonight we received the petition for discussion at our next committee. Any questions? No? Okay. Now we move on to Committee of the Whole, and I'll pass it on to the Chair of General Government, Conseillère Lise.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Ce soir, on est descendu à 2 items, B et C. Écoute, je pense que je vais passer la parole à Madame la Clerk. I think very extensive documentation, a lot of information. So, Madam Clerk, can you try to summarize and just highlight maybe the major point? It is a long document.
Thank you thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as indicated, it is a fairly extensive document. Council had directed me to take a look at what the City of North Bay is doing, and in principle, I think it works. They've set what I would consider to be a fairly level playing field for all of the types of vehicles for hire, which is the catch-all phrase for taxis, limousines, we call them Ubers or the other rideshare type services. They've excluded from the bylaw items like the shuttle that brings people to and from the chateau, school buses and other vehicles that carry over a certain capacity. The first thing that of note that I indicated in my memo is that the City of North Bay's bylaw is entirely administered by their police service. It is not administered by their clerical staff or by the city itself at all. It all runs through the police, which is a fairly significant difference because it creates a different flavor. As I indicated, their bylaw is very enforcement heavy, and on the front end, it's more of everybody's on their honor to have all their paperwork on demand if required at any given time for inspection. Their bylaw officers can, or I guess in their case, police officers can request documentation from any driver of any vehicle at any given time without warning or notice, basically. They license the taxis and all of the others. They all license them all the same. Everybody has to have the same requirements, licensing, insurance, etc. Difference with taxis, they actually issue plates for their taxis, which is some places do, some places don't. But in short, I think it's a really good starting point for a proposed bylaw. Obviously, it has could have budgetary implications, enforcement of a number of different types of vehicles could be a little more onerous than in the past where we were simply dealing with one single taxi service. They don't regulate the fares as well. Each of the services can set their own fares, which in their view, believe it keeps the market competitive with, everyone understands, I guess, what the others are charging, and they try to, compete for services, which avoids, I guess, gouging or whatever you would call it. I don't know, there was a lot of information there. I broke it down by each of the sections in the bylaws: fees, fares, paperwork involved, inspections, renewals, the types of vehicles that are outlined. I guess probably any questions specific to the memo, I can try to address them.
Okay, I'll start and I'll go around. I'll start with Monsieur Duhaime.
There's no comment at this moment, Madam Chair.
Okay, then I'll go with Mr. Fisher.
No, I have no comment. I generally just agree with the recommendation to send this out and get feedback and get some kind of report back that outlines costs and feasibility and that kind of thing. So I'm generally in line with the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Monsieur Larrabee. Conseiller Larrabee.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. I would have one comment to add to this is if we have two or more that would like to get into the business of taxiing, then I'm in agreeing with no fixed prices, because competition would resolve, a higher, like you said, higher price. But in the case that we only have one, then we should keep the liberty of putting a fixed fare, so that way if there's only one, they could charge whatever they, and it wouldn't be reasonable to our citizen. Thank you.
Monsieur Mallette. Conseiller Mallette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I see no issue, and I think it'll be a level playing field, and everybody can, they can charge $2 to go somewhere, and the other charge $3. It'll come to a point where the competition will dictate who we're going to take. So for taxis, so I really like this proposal from Melanie. Thank you.
Monsieur Roberge.
Thank you. I find it a very interesting bylaw, and one thing I find is that the fees, some of them are a bit high. We're not a big municipality, so the potential for operators to make, a fair return on their investment is more limited. And like you have a private transportation company, like $5,000. Is that a year for a license? I find that that's how it sounds to me, plus HST.
Madam Clerk, can you answer that?
I didn't speak directly to the fares or to the fees. I think that is something that if we bring back a draft bylaw for this municipality, that based on an analysis of what in terms of administrative costs, I think we would be adjusting our fees to recover our costs, but not to. I'm sure that the chief of police in North Bay makes a lot more money than I do. So consequently, the fares are probably a little bit more. I'm assuming they're on a cost recovery, but because they're administered by the City of North Bay's police service, I imagine that's probably why they're a bit higher. I think we would probably want to look at something more in line with what our previous licensing fees were like. And then obviously adjust upwards for increased administrative costs, but only commensurate with those costs.
Yeah, that was my point, Chair, is that basically usually we don't charge fees for services where to make a big profit. It's to recover the cost, so it's not distributed to the general ratepayer. So that's why, but I see if staff is going to do a survey, how much time would be involved to do that, then I would be more comfortable. And I like also the comments by Councillor Larrabee that maybe we should have some sort of a top rate that he can charge. And I believe, unless I didn't read it properly, that the fare must be quoted before the service the ride that takes off. So there's no surprise at the end that they think it's going to be $10 and then it's 25 and then it's a shock. And can I ask another question, please?
Sure, Mr. Conseiller.
That, if I understand properly, would also cover services like what the new fad, Uber, I call that, right? Those internet, they would be covered by this. Good, so everybody's treated fairly then.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. Revida, Conseiller Revida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a couple of things that I'd like to state. First of all, it's this plan is run through the police department, and you say that the enforcement was heavy on the honor system. In other words, that if people were not compliant, and we picked it up, we stopped them and we asked them, and I'm just thinking that it would be our bylaw officers, then we would be asking them for proof of insurance, we would ask them to ensure that their drivers had been criminally named record checked, et cetera, et cetera. My point is that I think that one of the things we should do when Madame Melanie comes back is that you give us a costing of how much it's going to cost us, because this is going to seem to be extra work in as much as the municipality is going to have to take on extra work through the bylaw officers and through the administration of the plan. So that is one issue, and I think that's an important. And I would even go further by saying that, can we try to figure out what the cost would cost us if we were to ask the OPP to enforce it? Because I think this is it's a service that for people that are vulnerable, the elderly, the youth. I think that's something that we have to have in place where we have an enforcement, because the point being is that I wouldn't want to let our vulnerable population be taken by some people that are not of good nature. So that would be my request. I think it's a good starting point, and I like the idea that you put in your recommendation that we would consult. And I think you said, and I'll paraphrase this, I think you said we would consult with those that are presently in the business in the community right now, that and then we would consult people that do represent the vulnerable population, such as DSAB. I guess the school boards is very important because they use extensively the taxi systems. So that saying that, I would think that we would have something in place where we'd do the consultation, but then we would take into consideration the enforcement. That's my only point.
Monsieur Sénécal. Madame, excuse, Monsieur Sénécal, c'est Madame la mairesse first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, thank you for the information. A few comments and maybe a few questions. Right now, with the change, it's really not a taxi bylaw. So my interpretation is a proposed vehicle for hire bylaw, which would include all services, for the exception of what was identified at the beginning when it comes to shuttle from Au Chateau and community living, which is provided within West Nipissing. Now, my main concern right now, I appreciate the fact of consultation, but we know today that within the private sector, and this is not construed to be negative, we have local citizens that are accessing services for transportation. And I recall that we were all in agreement that we were concerned with the safety of our citizens, okay? And we wanted some type of mechanism to make sure that we could reassure our constituents that they're getting in the vehicle with someone who is considered to be a safe driver and that comply with insurance. So if we proceed with consultation, how long will it take that we can give that reassurance to our constituents who are presently using the service, have been using the service yesterday, today, and tomorrow? So that is my main concern, number one. So I don't know if there's something we can do for a short window where we can ask or consult with our police authority to at least exercise the security clearance of those that are providing the services of transportation. And we can tell our constituents that service provider A, B, C have been cleared by our police authority. Could that be done?
I don't, through you, Madam Chair, I don't know without a bylaw whether we have any means to compel anyone to do anything. Currently, the operators that are out there are doing so without without a bylaw in place. They're not under our bylaw. They're not licensed.
I understand that, but I guess my main concern is, can we adopt something interim, at least requesting security clearance, anyone that's providing the actual service? Parce que à la fin de la journée, on a une population diversifiée qui utilise les services de transport. Puis moi, de mon côté, c'est que je veux m'assurer que les gens qui embarquent dans les voitures embarquent avec les gens auxquels on peut attester que c'est sécure.
Je sais pas. Je pense il faut qu'on consulte avec notre avocat pour confirmer si on a des droits de demander cette information sans un arrêté. Je sais pas.
So I'd like to see something simple. That's my personal opinion, and I'd like to note that because that's the main concern that I've been hearing from constituents right now. And I'm not capable of saying yes. I'm going, basically, we don't have a mechanism to break that. And I think that's critical. The other aspect is the recommendation, what North Bay is doing, which it's being administered, my understanding, from the North Bay Police Services Board and the North Bay Police Service. Is it the recommendation that we also follow same route from the documentation provided, that we hand this over to Nipissing West Police Services Board and for the Nipissing West OPP detachment to administer this proposed vehicle for hire bylaw?
I'm not making any recommendation on how it's administered. I'm just stating that that's how theirs is administered.
Okay. Because I read the entire document and it's very well detailed, but we're making reference to the city of North Bay. And I just was seeking clarification of what's being proposed from this document. Do we follow? I don't know. I'd like to hear from fellow councillors, direction to staff. Do we follow suit the same way as the city of North Bay? And I'm getting mixed.
Okay.
Either I'm misunderstanding, Madam Chair, or I need clarification, Madam Chair.
Okay, Monsieur Roberge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I believe I heard earlier that staff was going to verify, if it was handled by our bylaw officer and staff, or what were the advantage and disadvantage going one way or the other. Because legally, once we have the bylaw enforced, since it's a municipal bylaw, our bylaw enforcer has the full authority to enforce it, except the part where they have to provide the security check that is issued by the police department. But he can, force them to, 24 hours, show me your clearance for the police department or whatever.
You're looking at me like.
No, I mean, it's because you're the chair. I'm talking to
Yeah,
you.
okay, I understand, but I cannot answer.
No, I know, but that's the way I understand it, that we have an option here to either, and I think if I heard correctly earlier, that
Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
mentioned that she
Madam
would,
Chair,
yeah,
excuse me, Madam Chair. You're having a
Yeah.
discussion and we haven't had our turn at the table here. Like if you want to discuss it or ask a secondary question, you should go around the whole table so everybody gets equal.
You're right, Mr. Chair, may I ask somebody to try it, because you're very hard to understand what I don't know if you have a problem to understand us, but all of you, it's, the volume seems to be low. Is it possible?
I can't hear a thing.
Right?
Attendez.
Right, okay, and quand c'est Yvon, you can hear nothing either, like I've been having problem on,
Is
so,
it only
but
mine?
yes, Madam Chair, Madame Savage, your question will, when it's time, I'll do finish the first round, and then you ask a question and I'll go again, okay?
Well, I have no objection, just seeking clarification. Okay,
No, well, you
No,
want to
it's
finish
okay.
what you have to say, and then you can ask a question after?
it's okay.
Because it's a lot better to go around and ask, then we don't get caught in, okay, Conseiller Denis?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
It's very low.
Yeah, I don't know. Is everybody
No,
alone?
I don't think it's you. I think it's everybody on this side, like all of you, we don't, it's very low. The last time somebody said this TV was open, maybe that's why we heard better. I don't know.
Melanie, are you hearing me or is it just them?
Maybe we get Elisa to come in.
You're hearing me? Okay,
Councillor Denis, I can hear you very well.
okay.
Well, yeah. I'm glad that you guys can hear yourself. We're saying that I and he and E and you, Madam Mayor, is it loud or is it?
It's the volume in the room. Those of us electronically can hear each other. It's the volume in the room. Someone's going to come and adjust the volume on the TV in the room.
Okay, thank you.
You're
We'll
welcome.
wait a little bit. Mais moi non plus.
Allez. La dernière fois, j'ai touché ça, là, puis j'ai fou les claques.
Ouais, non, pas tout.
Alyssa, if you don't mind me saying,
Ils vont être 78.
That's not what I want to do. I'm going behind it.
Alyssa, when this was on,
Yeah, so I will put the one on behind it. I thought this had two on, but we'll turn this one on, yeah. And then it's right behind you, maybe I'll hear it. I was trying to stay off the TV. Too late.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Hello?
100%.
I can't get rid of that message, but you guys aren't looking at that one.
No,
anyway,
we're
so-
not looking at that. That's fine.
Test.
Okay,
Okay, go for it.
All right, thank you for my interference here, but I just have to say that I really like this bylaw, and that's why I wanted to comment before we go further. I really like it because first, it takes it away from the administration, such as the planner, and that takes stress out of her. I think the police should handle this as the way that the bylaw is written, and the police service board can oversee that. So having said that, I like the rest of the bylaw. It's very strict. I like it. And I think we should maybe get the commander or somebody else to give us some sort of how much it would cost for our West Nipissing OPP to figure this one out or to look after it. I think that would be our best option. And then there's no politics involved, and it's strictly enforcement. So that was my say. Thank you.
before we go, because I would be it would be, I'll ask you to finish what you have because you seem to, I don't have a lot of questions, I just have a comment.
Okay, Madam Chair, in line with what Conseiller Denis is saying, the way that I read it, I'm not comparing what we had for the taxi bylaw, because the previous taxi bylaw was enforced by both police and by law enforcement officer. But after reading this, it seemed that all had been delegated to the Police Services Board and under the authority of police enacting a bylaw to regulate and control and ensure safety. So I think instead of doing research or doing a study, and if we're really concerned with the safety of people, our recommendation would be to see if the Police Services Board of Nipissing West, if they can iron out the bylaw and have authorities enforce it, and what would be the cost to the municipality for doing so?
I would agree.
That would be my recommendation, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Duhaime?
Madam Chair, I would also agree with that as well. There's something I'd like to ask, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I remember with reference to what Madame Mayoress had mentioned, we do have personnel right now in the municipality that are providing some type of a service. Are they being monitored or are they being? Okay, so the question I have, we do have a taxi bylaw, and I guess in essence it's a taxi bylaw. We are liable with respect, because we do have a bylaw in force in there. Are we liable at all in any way if somebody else provides services from the municipality? Are we liable?
I think no, but Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, the current situation, none of those individuals are licensed under our bylaws. So although we have the right to regulate, failure to do so because they're not licensed taxis, they're just ride providing services. They're not under our bylaw. So it's my understanding that we're not liable because we didn't license them.
Okay, that was the only concern I had, Chair. I wanted to make sure that we would be liable.
Yeah, but it's still a major concern. So that means there's people riding around, there's no restriction, we don't know, so, but I'll go, who had the conseiller Dan?
I don't tend to disagree with what Councillor Duhaime just said and the Mayor. I think one of the things we should do is to have a look at it. That was my recommendation, to have a look at on, whether we should be having it policed inside or outside. Although I still think that that would give us an idea of where we're going. And then that way we would have an idea on the costs, because the cost is an issue too. But all in all, what has to be done is we have to have something that would be put in place to ensure the safety of the disadvantaged, not vulnerable populations. So I'm being a little bit not clear, but it's purpose, because the thing is I think that we have to have the clerk. This is supposed to be a discussion, and the clerk is supposed to take the information that we're providing her and coming back with a solution to this problem. Because it is a problem. There are people that feel that they're vulnerable and that they're taking these taxis without knowing whether these people are bona fide taxi drivers in the sense that they've been criminally named record checked. That's my position. Thank you. That's my recommendation.
And I think that's exactly what conseiller said his concern was. Conseiller Duhaime's concern was about the people and not being liable. I don't think that makes us great people either, because we know that could be a major problem out there. Those people are serving our resident right now. And if there's nobody to control them, there's no bylaw, no restriction. And how long would it take to have a bylaw to start with? I mean, it's been, and there's, I had an email from a resident saying that he's been asking for a license. I guess, are we looking at taxi? Are we looking at a mix of everything? Is that what we're looking? Because that's not clear. And even after all the discussion, it's not clear in my head. So are we hoping to give a taxi license to a resident, or giving people that they will be under the bylaw, that the OPP will manage them and see blah, 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 because it's still not clear to me. Because they say they've been asking for it. They say, even said there is a triple star shuttle that's waiting for a license to start operating. And there's people that invested in there and they want to know when. And and I did ask at that point of time, follow up, and I did not receive it. So I was not able to answer him. And I said, well, when he goes on the agenda, because he's checking. So hopefully he's checking tonight, because we're talking about the taxi bylaw. So Madam Clerk, my question to you is, I want to make in my mind, and I support that we have to look, and I mean, it cannot wait a month, 2 months, or 3 months. It's been happening for the last, 3-4 months, that people are driving taxi with no restriction. We don't even know if they have insurance. So, and they charging whatever they are charging, and there's a lot of, we have a few vulnerable population in West Nipissing as our senior, as our young people, and so I would like to see something happening really fast. And it seems to me with the answer, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, we're not liable, which is great for the municipality, but not that great for a resident, because there's nothing to reassure them. So what can we do? So obviously you have to, we're directing you, we're giving you some insight and about it. Me too, I would like to see that bylaw not be operated by the municipality, because we got to take political matter off the table, because I think we're at some point of time, we're not, we should not be in charge of everything that's going on. We have a say, but I mean, I think I like the fact that if we could have something as a bylaw that will give the OPP or the board to look into it, I would agree with that. I think it would be a great idea, but there's a cost. We need to know the cost, but there's also a cost if we manage it with the city. And then there's a cost that will not be payable if something happened and we do not do nothing, even if we're not liable. That is my comment. So yes, Madam Mayor.
Well, from all the discussion that we had, can we adopt a condensed resolution saying that anyone in the business of providing shuttle transportation, that the proof of insurance, mechanical of the vehicle, and security clearance to be reviewed by Nipissing West OPP until we get the consultation done and a detailed bylaw would be looked into. Because right now, what I hear is we're all on the same page for safety. So we can adopt something, a short bylaw that would address the issue of safety until we have a full-fledged bylaw that would be adopted either by this council or future council.
And the CPIC also.
Well, that's what I'm saying, safety.
Yeah, but
The safety of our citizens and the safety of the transportation vehicle used.
is it possible, Madam Clerk? Yes.
Yes.
Lisa, yeah.
Alicia, there's Madam Corporate Service, I want to talk, and Madam Alicia, which one was first? I don't know, I didn't see.
I believe Ms. Craddock was first.
And I'm probably just going to support what the clerk was going to say, because I believe she answered that before, is doing a mini bylaw is doing a taxi bylaw. And that's what's in front of you, because in order to do a mini bylaw, you have to define everything. You have to define what a vehicle for hire is. You've got to do all these definitions. You've got to sort out who actually qualifies. You've got to do all of that before you can even put a mini thing in. So there's not a mechanism to do a halfway bylaw. Council has this bylaw for discussion in front of them, or not, it's not even a bylaw, but has some parameters for discussion in front of them. And we can't just make a mini thing without making a bylaw, and without going through all the steps, to look for all those things that the mayor just requested. That is what a bylaw is.
Does.
Well, on that note, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think I'll say Yvonne.
Could we not introduce the existing bylaw and enforce it
Can we do that?
Can we enforce the existing bylaw
No, because they don't have license.
with amendment? Who did that way?
And again, if I may, Madam Chair, the problem with the existing bylaw is the definitions of a taxi. And that's the only thing that we've got in the existing bylaw that has any stick to it. The rest doesn't actually have any stick. And so the problem is the definition of a taxi. And so though we mention other forms of transportation, we don't actually put any measurements attached to those forms of transportation in our existing bylaw. And so what we have out in the public right now are not taxis under the definition. And that's the difficulty we have with the bylaw that we have right now.
How long would it take to amend the bylaw, Madam Chair?
So, question, Madam Clerk, how long do you think it would take to have like a draft to be presented and consultation over?
I'll be quite frank, I don't know. Drafting a bylaw is not particularly difficult, but without an idea of how to enforce it or an enforcement, a decision on who will enforce it or set fines set in place with the province, it's a little bit complicated, in whether council wants to go forward with, some version of this, but without doing any consultation. That's entirely up to council as to whether they just want to do that. I don't know. I'm sure if we were going to be asking the police service that we won't get an answer overnight. I'm sure that they would have to meet with their board and have conversations on that front. I see Councillor Fisher's got his hand up, and I'm sure he has something to add to that. But I agree, as Ms. Craddock said, it's a mini bylaw or a full-fledged bylaw. It's the same thing, because we have to define what it is. We have to set the parameters. We have to say, we're going to license these kinds of things. This is the definition of that. These people have to provide this. Those other ones have to provide that. It's if you looked at the North Bay bylaw, it's a hefty document. It does break it down very, very clearly as to each kind of thing and what they have to do, which we would also have to do, because as Elisa said, we don't have what's going on out there right now doesn't fit in our bylaw, our current bylaw at all. There's no taxi stand. There's no taxi broker. There's just people driving cars.
Mr. Fisher, Conseiller Fisher.
So this actually, it has been discussed with the OPP. It's minuted on page 117 of your packages. So basically, lots of municipalities, it falls under the municipalities. Some people do get the local police to do it. The answer back from the OPP was that they're not sure that they would do it, but they'll look into it. Next police board meeting is next week, and I'll have it on the agenda for everybody. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you have something else?
I was going to say, maybe the term mini bylaw is not the proper term, but even if we had a starting point as far as a bylaw defining vehicle transportation in West Nipissing will be required to provide proof to the municipality and ensure that they have a security clearance by our police service, and that bylaw could be amended once we're ready, or once it's consultation. And it can be amended, but there could be a starting point. I just don't feel comfortable to leave it free rein right now with no safety mechanism in place to provide assurance to our constituents.
So what we have to do now, I think, is make a decision. So who wants to go and, as recommended at the beginning, that have the consultation and the discussion and come back? And who wants to go? There's two questions. Who wants to have something done right away to try to protect our resident? Yes, Madam.
I don't think we should be making a decision on something that we don't even know if we can legally do. I don't know that we can do an interim as is being suggested, and I wouldn't want to vote on something that like, we have to be able to enforce it. We can't pass a bylaw that we can't enforce.
Okay, so
We
Madam
can
Mayor,
pass a bylaw, but without the mechanism to say, hey, you've got to bring this in and you got to show it to us, and they're gonna say, why? What's gonna happen if I don't?
okay, so Madam Mayor, if I'm asking you that between this meeting and next meeting, do you have time to have legal advice to see if we could prepare something that would hold between the time that we have something structured in place and pass? Because it's not,
I believe I can get that advice, yes.
so would that be satisfying most of the people around the table? It would be something, because yes, we need to know if we can enforce it, and so that would be by next September. I don't have a calendar, that at least we could do some, if, yes, I think I see, oh, hello, Monsieur CEO, how are you?
Well, the next general government meeting will be October 1st, I believe.
Could we put something on the next agenda that would be dealing with that to make sure, especially we have to do with safety?
You can, if council wishes to amend and they can by 2/3 majority, put a general government section in to address this at the next meeting.
Okay, then my question is, can I put it, motion myself on the table to ask who would like to discuss that at the next meeting? I need 2/3 of the people to agree or disagree.
But then, if I may, Madam Chair, what prevents the subject matter to be rolled over under safety? There is a committee for safety for residents. So I've seen at other times where we had subject matters that either went from one committee to another committee.
Can we do that?
And that would be,
Well, anything is possible. Again, I'm trying to adhere to the strict adherence to what the bylaw says. And if council wishes to amend it in that way, it appeared in general government. If you want it to go back to general government, fine. If council directs us to put it in another section, then we'll do that. Other than that, we'll adhere to the bylaw.
Okay, so, well, do we need 2/3 to be put under another committee, or just a strict vote majority?
Melanie, I think it's probably just a straight majority, but if
I think so. I would think so.
to another committee, it's a straight majority. To accept general government in next meeting, it would be 2/3, I believe.
Okay, so I think maybe I'll ask to who's in favor of putting it to the next agenda under another committee, which is safety for emergency measure. So who would support that? We need the majority. 1, 2, 3. Who raised that? I'm sorry, I didn't see. I'm going to start there. Raise your hand, please. Who wants to put it under emergency and safety next meeting to discuss? And that would give Mel Madame Cham, the time to talk to a lawyer. So, Monsieur Sénécal. Okay. Monsieur Duin, 2. Monsieur Roberge, Madame, and myself. So, pass. Thank you very much.
Correction.
Okay. Then the second item is number C, update of MAO conference delegation. MAO, we will speak about that. Monsieur Barbeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you're well aware, Council received was accepted for 2 delegations for this AMO conference, which was held between the 14th and the 17th. We met with the Minister of Transportation and her staff, and we met with the Minister of Infrastructure and her staff. The meetings went very well. That doesn't tell you anything. So the Ministry of Transportation, the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the possibility of enhancing economic development opportunities for north of West Nipissing and north of River Valley, and to ensure that our logging and mining vehicles are able to access their markets 24 or 12 months of the year, as opposed to having to stop at half loads, which seriously impacts their progress. At the delegation, I had Councillor Larrabee, who is well versed with the subject matter, Councillor Norma Belch, Councillor Leo Millette, and Councillor Dan Ravita. The surprising news is that it wasn't an outright no to pave and enhance the level of road between Warren and River Valley. The answer was a little bit cryptic, whereby the chief engineer of the Ministry of Transportation, so her title is Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Engineer, which was very, wow, indicated for me to get in touch with her, as she had some potentially favorable news for us, given summer schedules. Unfortunately, and an error in communication, I did reach out to her. She called back. I guess didn't know who reached out to her, although I left a voice message, and it got transferred down to Public Works, who didn't know what that was. So finally got to the bottom of that today, and I have a meeting scheduled with her this Thursday to discuss that. But the implication at that meeting was it was fairly favorable in terms of technology that would be and could be used on that highway to eliminate the half loads. I don't know if there's any of the councillors who wish to add anything, but again, we were well represented with some people that had a lot of knowledge on that front. So I don't know if any of the councillors wish to add anything.
No. Leo?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was there with Councillor Larrabee and Mr. Barbeau and Mr. Roberts and Mr. Ravita. And yes, Mr. Larrabee done a good presentation to the minister and Mr. Barbeau. And yeah, it was favorable. I was surprised that I think they were prepared for us. I mean, all the answers was favorable for municipality. Thank you, Mr. Larrabee.
So the second one was to, sorry.
I think you had a question. Sorry, Mr. Barbeau.
No, just a comment. Thank you for the delegation to the Minister of Transportation and for doing a phenomenal job. It wasn't a new subject to the ministry because there was a previous delegation that was done on the same subject matter, but to also highlight that ministry officials had reached out prior to the delegation to find out exactly details pertaining to what the request would be. So I think the fact that it was not a new request, it had been formulated the prior year for the exact same thing, and also with the dialogue that took place with ministry officials and with your attendees and doing a phenomenal job to remind them that this is critical for our area. So thank you to who attended the delegation and emphasized the need for action.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, and the end result with all of the work of everybody, hopefully I'll have some favorable information to bring back. With respect to the second item is from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Minister Surma, and the purpose for that was a very big ask. So what we were putting them is kind of putting them on notice, the government on notice, that we are going to be coming and asking for some assistance to assist us in our water project from the Verner distribution area going through Cache Bay and into Verner. And so that will be a big project. And there's a report that's going to be provided in the next item on that. And so that was just to let them know, make them aware, put it on the record that this is very serious. We indicated all of the issues with respect to the capacity issues, also water quality issues that our source water creates for us. And, and we talked to them about the opportunity of growth in the Verner area with respect to capacity. So it was very favorable, and that too went very well. We managed to get out of there without being arrested because one of our counselors stole the phone of, he didn't steal the phone, took the phone from the gatekeeper outside to ensure that we'd have more time, but it was all done in fun. So they received us very well, and it was a good icebreaker to start talking about them. And again, thank you to the 4 counselors, Councillor Roberge, who again spoke and represented his ward excellently, Councillor Larrabee, Councillor Millette, and Councillor Rovita. So that one there, we just kind of was more of a, a soft ask, letting them know that more detail will be coming very shortly.
Okay. Any question, comment? Monsieur Dan, Conseiller Dan.
Just wanted to add the fact that the minister, not only was she receptive, she basically made the point that Premier Ford's one of his main objections is to provide clear water to the population that reside in Ontario. And she basically said that this is one of his priorities. She made another comment that was quite interesting. She said, as it stands right now, there is no federal provincial infrastructure program in place, and that, sorry about that, that she basically stated that they will, as soon as they are aware of what kind of program is going to come out, that they'll be letting us know, because she said that it's very important that we get our ducks in line, and that we basically make sure that we're there at the beginning. So it was interesting that she was, she was very open to it. Again, they were very well versed. They were aware of the situation. They know that it's one of our priorities. And I just like to commend Councillor Roberge. He led the delegation, and he did a bang-up job. So I think that's the only thing that I could add to it. And I was the one that took the young lady's phone. The reason I wanted to take her phone, because she told us she was going to keep us to 15 minutes because she knew that we were a bunch of talkers. So that's why I took her phone, and she wasn't able to stop us at the 15-minute part. So it was, all in all, it was a good experience, and I can honestly say that Councillor Roberge did a very good job.
Oh my God, I got a comment that I cannot see. It doesn't smell fish, but it smells something else. That's it. So I think I'm conclusion on that. Congratulations for that, and we're hoping to get some good news about that. So that will conclude, Madam Mayor, my part of this that committee.
Of your committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move on to Sewer and Water Committee. We have one item on the agenda, which is the Verner Water Expansion Project. And I'll pass it on to the Chair, Conseiller Dan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As we stated in the previous conversation, we did have a delegation, and it was based on the points where we're at right now. Our staff are looking at this diligently because they want to put this to bed, because it is a major issue for the municipality of, not the municipality, the ward for Verner. People want clean water. People should be allowed clean water. So I'll let our CAO explain to where we're at in regards to what we've done up to now. I think the staff have been working diligently on this. It's step by step, but we're getting there. So Mr. Barbo, would you like to expand on where we're at? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure I have much to add or to go off piece, so to speak, other than what Mr. Ming and Mr. Carell provided us in writing, but what it said in writing here is where they're at this point. After doing some environmental consultations and public consultations, I believe that transpired. They have been working, because what happens and what the description of the project is basically to stop utilizing the Vev River as an intake source for water in that distribution system. And so we have a lot of capacity and ability within our distribution system, involving taking of the water, the capacity at the water treatment plant, as well as then the distribution, of course, down the line. We have so the plan, and this has been a plan, I should say, that I spoke to Mr. Carell with probably 20 years ago. This was kind of discussed a little bit as to what that would cost. So though our staff and Aqua, the Ontario Clean Water Agency, have been doing a bang-up job keeping the water potable, despite the issues we've been facing with manganese, that the water is clean, safe, and tested. It's still unsightly with the manganese, and it's still just a problem, and involves a lot of effort, and tweaking. And so the solution would be to have a clean water source and to pipe it. So to pipe that, we would be looking at a continuation going through the Cache Bay area and using the existing railway system or rights of way that exist right now. Because what the public needs to know is we need to negotiate then a bunch of rights of way, or easements, I guess the rights of way, the legalese, to get the water from Cache Bay to Verner. And so that has been going on. It has been favorable. The municipality through Alan and Peter have been dealing with CPR, and they have a standard agreement at this point, very technical, and they're just going through it at this time. So this is a present thing going on right now. And they'd be looking at some negotiations going forward with the starting costs, and the yearly rates of increase that they're proposing, in our opinion, seem a little steep for a public entity. We are obviously receiving support from the user of the line, which is Ottawa Valley Railway. The point 3 is what we just discussed in the previous item on the agenda, in the fact that we've met with the ministry and we're starting that process as well. Now we're looking at, or they have conducted area profile of the land, and they're developing profile drawings, including preliminary water designs. The consultant is arranging for quotations with firms to conduct some geotechnical investigation, which is fancy for soil analysis and geotechnical analysis, because of course they need to know what is in the ground. If they're going to be digging for a pipe, they need to know where the roadblocks are and design accordingly if they have to go around rock and other issues. So they have to do that. They contemplate that cost to be approximately $100,000. So that's going to be a council issue and a budget item when that comes forward. The hydraulic modeling was completed, and it's determined that the Sturgeon Falls water plant alone doesn't sustain the needed pressure going all the way that distance for fire protection. So this confirms that the water plant that exists now has to continue to be used, but it'll be used as a pumping station. And so the water will end there, and then it'll be driven from that plant, which will provide the necessary pressure and the additional pressure necessary to ensure safety for fire suppression. So the conversion of the water plant, given that, is being investigated, including the transitioning from that water plant to a future use. And they're talking about decommissioning the water treatment process. Now, I spoke to Councillor Roberge about this because the logical solution for us would be, it'd be really nice to have a plan B. As it stands right now, the Ministry of the Environment are indicating that there can't be a plan B on that, that if we're going to have this system, this is our water system, and therefore the system of purification of the VEV will have to cease. Now, this is just preliminary information from MOE authorities, but we haven't tested that or negotiated that item yet, because certainly I could see a definite benefit for having a fail-safe. The high-speed internet connectivity is being commissioned to place the Werner water plant on the municipal network, which is required to remotely operate the converted distribution pumping station. So long and short of it is that, you know, this is an asset that we own, but that we do not operate and have never operated. It was always operated by Aqua. And so we don't have any of our infrastructure in there. And so we will be putting our IT infrastructure in there to ensure that we're able to conduct that. So these are things that we're looking at right now. We asked staff for an update, and this is the update that was provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barbo. If there's any questions, I guess what we could do is just the table fast. Councillor Jaheim, do you have any questions, comments?
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question to Mr. Barbo. And I think I missed it here, but do you mention that there's a negotiating you're recommending to negotiate a starting cost and a yearly rate of increase for using the land? What was it that you said about that? Is the yearly rate of increase, is that going to be a costly issue, or?
Well, it's right now, without getting into the details, because we're still in negotiation. I wouldn't want to, to prejudice our position. The position that we have right now on the submission that they provided was, we were surprised a little bit by what they would charge us for the use of their land, and then the escalators on an annual basis going forward. So like any negotiation, this is a start, and we are going to be responding to them accordingly. And once we have something, that makes sense to staff, then we will be, of course, bringing it back to council.
Mr. Chair, can I move on with another question to that topic?
Yes.
I realize that, thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize, Mr. Barbo, that we negotiated with them and we're moving, and the idea of going along the tracks was a good idea. But if it is possible that if we went along our roads and provided water service from Cache Bay all the way to Werner to people that wanted it along our roads, that could be done as well, right? And we do own a portion past the road as well, like the ditch and the. I think. Is that a possible scenario?
It is a possible scenario, but the trunk or the size of the pipe, and I'm speaking like I know what I'm talking about now, which is scary, but the size of the pipe to pipe the water in a distribution network as it is now is not that simple to just tap into. That's a fairly technical issue. So to pump that volume of water, you're talking about a much bigger pipe. So it isn't your regular distribution pipes, your 12 inches or 6 inches or whatever inches you're talking about, and then connecting onto that. We did do it once when we built Genmar, and it was a major undertaking. So in general, it's a major pipe. Should the need arise where in the future it's looking like those in between the two locations want to connect, then we'll have a look at getting a secondary distribution off of the main pipe. But we really haven't been able to design it for that purpose. So,
okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Good comments, Councillor Fisher.
No, I have no questions at this time.
Councillor Larabi.
Thank you. Just maybe to clarify a little bit of that question that the Councillor Jaime just asked is usually from point A to point B, they increase the pressure and then decrease at the other end to allow for a normal tap pressure. But in the middle, usually it's quite higher. So to put a reduction at every home along the way, it would be fairly costly. Thank you.
difficult to design, not knowing who would reduce the pressure that is necessary for Werner. So,
Councillor Millet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to Mr. Barbeau. So that means we would not need Aqua anymore? So we'd be doing it our own, right?
that is correct.
Would
And
we
so that would be
safer-
one of the financial benefits to this as well. So, you know, when you're looking at a cost benefit for it, that would be the reduction in local costs and the treatment of the local plant and so forth would be then eliminated.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberge.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Mayor Savage.
Just a few questions and point of clarification. The people in Werner wanted to get an update pertaining to timeline. I believe in 2020, we did the consultation where we had retained the services of a consultant and providing them with an update with the options. And from there, it came back to council, identifying that the option that council, what was recommended is, as described, pipe the water from Werner, from Cache Bay along CPR land to Werner. And that the cost was within the range of potentially $12 million. When it came back to council, if I recall, negotiation, the next step was to entertain the fact of getting a license from CPR and a license from the Ministry of Environment. And I believe that was pursued potentially at the end of 2020. Now, right now, where we stand, are we looking at the same option that had been presented to council from that report and to proceed with the recommendation from the firm that was retained? Because I don't recall that we discussed any changes to that report.
No, we didn't discuss any changes to the report, Madam Mayor. There were two options, one shipping it straight from Sturgeon, I believe, and the other one going through Cache Bay, which was less expensive. And I believe that was the option that staff recommended and that we're pursuing. I am asking, because I have people that look at these things for timelines right now. All I can hear is we're on track. So I guess the negotiations with the railway company are, as you can well imagine, take time, as any negotiation. So I don't know, I haven't been involved directly with that, but I can assure you both Mr. Carell and Mr. Ming have been working with that. And then we're looking at obviously the financing of it. And so, you know, once we're ready and have a design ready to go, we'll be asking for financing. So I don't really have a clear timeline for you to guess. All I could tell you is that I think my impression a few years ago was that comments that were made were pretty, not wishful thinking. I'm trying to think of the expression here, but they were pretty aggressive with respect to this kind of project. And so to tell you what timelines they are, all I could tell you right now, and I can get that back, but all I can tell you right now is if we're at that stage and we're looking at the design stage, then we'll be at the building stage. I would probably venture to guess that we'd be looking at potentially a construction next year if financing's in place, but more likely to be safe, a 2024 project.
Okay. And the reason I brought it up for it to be added to the agenda was because the timeline with the documentation that had been issued to the residents of Werner during COVID for the consultation identified exactly that. Potentially construction pending on financing in 2023 and connection to the households by 2024. And of course, pending licensing with CPR, pending licensing with MOE, and pending financing. And I think the people of Werner want to be kept informed as we move forward, because the main issue that has been a contentious issue has been the brown water and the level of manganese that we're treating with additional chemicals. But there are still households that for a reason or another are experiencing the brown water and the problem that it creates with their washing, drinking, and consuming the brown water. Even though we tell them it's safe, it's still brown water, and it's not appealing to the eye and probably not appealing to the taste. So I appreciate the feedback, but I would hope that, I was hoping that knowing that when we have a plan or a project, that there could be a template, and it's a template. Of course, a template is subject to change pertaining to timelines with regular updates to council. And this way, at least the information is shared to the people in Verner. And that's what they want. They want to be kept abreast because of the reoccurrence of this problem. And it's been a problem for ages. And I commend staff and, for the due diligence that's being done behind the scene in getting this moved forward.
Councillor Lees? Oh, no, Councillor Denis, I think, eh?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Lees?
No, the only comment I have, I cannot wait for them that it happened, but I can also understand that the process is a long one, and even now with the plan, if we don't get the money, but at some point of time, something will have to be done. So I do agree that the more that they can, sometime once in a while, to give an update, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you for the input that everybody provided. We know that this is a complex process, and however, it does take time, and we're moving forward. It's better to do it incrementally than try to jump to start to this thing. The brown water issue, I've taken upon myself to have discussions with people that have had the problems, and they said that it's been better lately. So that is reassuring. And so the point being is that we take this very seriously. I know that Peter Ming and Alan Carell have kept me abreast of what's going on, and they will provide us with updates. But as it stands now, we're looking at perhaps next year, 2023, or maybe the project will be ready to go on 2024. So they've assured me that they're diligently doing the best that they can because they want to resolve this issue. And then it'll be we'll have to do our magic to get the money to do it. And that will be going to Toronto and asking them to help us. But like I said, the minister was pretty open to our conversation, and she didn't say no. So that's a good start, and we'll make every effort to make this work. Thank you. I'll leave it up to you, Madam Chair. I'm finished with my area of the agenda.
Okay, so now we have concluded committee. We move on to planning, and we have a few resolutions. Is there a mover and a seconder to assume dedicate the land for road purposes, part of Garden Village Road? Councillor Rowley, Councillor Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-86, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed. Part of Lot 1, Concession B, Parts 2 and 3, Plan 36R 14884, Geographic Township Springer, being part of the traveled roads known as Garden Village Road, Sturgeon Falls.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopted. Mover and a seconder to assume dedicate land for the road purpose, part of Olivier Road and Lac Caché Road. Conseiller Norm, Conseiller Yvon.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I was looking at a mistake in I missed the mover, please, Madam Chair.
The mover, Conseiller Norm, seconder, Conseiller Yvonne.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Roberge and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-87, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of Lot 8, Concession 1, being Parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10, Plan 36R 14907, Geographic Township of Badgerow, being part of the traveled road known as Lac Caché Road, Verner.
Any objections? Aucune objection, none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder to assume dedicate land for road purposes, Carmen Road and North-South Road. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-88, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of Lot 8, Concession 1, being Part 2, Plan 36R 14905 in the Township of Kirkpatrick, being part of the traveled roads known as Carmen and North and South Road in Verner.
Any objections? Aucune objection, none, carried, adopté. Mover and a seconder to authorize for a red line amendment for Dover Court subdivision. Conseiller Lefebvre, Conseiller Alice.
Non, moi j'avais une question.
Okay, first we have to introduce,
Yeah, so I'm keeping my hand up. Okay, I can.
okay, so mover, Conseiller Norm, seconder, Conseiller Yvonne.
It is moved by Councillor Roberge and seconded by Councillor Duhaime, whereas on May the 21st, 2019, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality passed a resolution granting draft approval for subdivision file number 201902 for property located on Dover Court Road in Sturgeon Falls, owned by 2623288 Ontario Limited, Nico Toulouse and Pierre Seguin, which is more particularly described as part of Lot 4, Concession 1, and part of Block 43 on Plan 36M670. And whereas the property has been sold to Sturgeon Riviera Limited, and whereas Council has received a proposed red line amendment of the approved draft plan, be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality approves the proposed red line amendments to the approved draft subdivision plan for property legally described as part of Lot 4, Concession 1, and part of Block 43, Plan 36M670 in the Township of Springer, for property owned by Sturgeon Riviera Ltd., and be it further resolved that notice of the proposed amendments be given pursuant to Section 5145 of the Planning Act.
Questions, comments, Conseiller Alice?
Well, I just want the public to know what does it mean, the red line amendment?
I'll pass it on to our clerk.
I see line, but
What's that mean?
Thank you, Madam. The sketch was not included?
yes, but I still don't. Planning is not my forte, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what is being proposed here? Previously, the subdivision would come off of the south end of the southern end of Dover Court Road and would go up, and previously consisted of a number of small cul-de-sacs within the road. What is being proposed now is the actual subdivision will loop, and it will come out at the top on the property that was acquired by the municipality for that purposes. So now, instead of being a street where the ingress and the egress is in the same place, now there will be ingress. You can enter and exit from the south and north end of the subdivision off of the existing Dover Court Road. So it'll be a loop, which will allow looping of the water and the sanitary services as well. So it's just a change in the design.
So may I?
Yes, you may.
So what it mean, and again, I think I understand, but I'm not sure. So people, let's say the subdivision is built, everything is built up tomorrow. Okay, tonight we go to bed and tomorrow there's a subdivision. Meaning that people that live like where it's blocked on the highway Toronto Street, the loop that we just did, you block that there's a place that people can turn around.
Mhm.
People will be able to go this way
Yes,
to go out the Dover Court, so they will have to go to the new subdivision and at the stop sign, basically.
No, there's no intention to open the north end again.
No,
It
no,
just-
but I know
But-
that. I mean, if they go, excuse me, maybe I cannot explain it myself the right way.
Explique-le en
Ben,
français.
je peux l'expliquer en français, puis je sais pas parce que dans ma tête, je le vois pas. OK?
Okay,
Disons que où est-ce que vous avez fait vous avez bloqué le chemin sur la rue Toronto. Vous avez fait le turnaround, que le monde ne peut pas sortir, là. Quand que tu vas là au bout, il faut que tu utilises ça. C'est quoi tu veux dire avec, c'est quoi que la nouvelle subdivision, elle va sortir par là et tout? C'est ça que les personnes qui vont avoir des maisons sur la nouvelle subdivision, ils vont toutes sortir par là?
il peut sortir par le current Nico Crescent ou
Ok.
le petit lot qu'on a acheté de
Ah, OK, c'est ça que je veux savoir.
ça va être une loop comme,
Fait que tout le monde va
Non,
pouvoir
mais-
faire le tour s'ils veulent, là, comme ces deux bars.
oui,
OK, mais ça peut causer beaucoup de trafic pour l'overcourt comme c'est là, si le monde décide d'aller tout faire le tour, parce que, comme vous savez, il n'y a pas de trottoir, puis il y a deux gros fossés d'à peu près 3-4 pieds sur chaque bord. Ça fait que ça peut être dangereux, ça et tout, mais écoute, it is what it is.
mais sauf pour les services d'urgence parce que they won't have to turn around at the top anymore. They'll be able to go in one end and come out the other.
Okay. No, I understand.
Any further questions or comments?
Just to
Councillor Yvon?
Just a point, Madam Mayor, is that, and I agree with Lise, there's going to be a lot of traffic at Dover Court, and we're going to end up covering the dishes and having to put the sidewalk there because there's going to be a lot of traffic. This is just a comment, and I thank you very much for that opportunity.
Okay,
It is.
but point of clarification, I think this subdivision was approved as is prior to,
It was.
and now it's the change of ownership.
They should have sidewalk.
And with the loop or the turnaround, that's why we have the adjustment line that we also have to amend.
That's correct.
Okay, is that a summary well noted pertaining to what we are adopting this evening?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The number of lots is not changing substantially. The design is not changing substantially. The substantial change to the subdivision will be that instead of being a dead end and come back out at the bottom, people will be able to come in the bottom, go out the top, or vice versa. There are some other slight changes in terms of the lot configuration to accommodate that loop. So you'll see at the north end, there's some lots that have been changed to where there were formerly some lots facing out onto Highway 64 / Toronto Street. Those lots will now face inward and are actually going to be developed as multi-residential with accommodating parking from the inside. There are some other small changes. The actual, I don't want to speak for the developers, but they are looking at some improvements to the original design in terms of servicing, underground servicing, and potentially storm sewers as well, although that all hasn't been ironed out. They obviously inherited the original design, but I do believe that they are looking at an enhanced design that they're working with staff at the moment.
Dan, Councillor Lise?
I think one of the points that one should notice or bring to the table is the fact that by doing this, you're creating no bottleneck for the water flow. And that is very important. You're forming a flow. And the flow is what most of the people that are dealing with water flows are stating is very important. So all in all, I don't think it's going to cause that much more traffic because what you're going to have is you'll have two outlets instead of one outlet. And in as much by saying that, people will have the be able to choice between leaving the top part or the bottom part. So all in all, you're going to have I think I looked at the design, I thought the design was much better for the community, for not only the water, but for the whole idea of flow of traffic. So I'm totally in agreement with this.
I'll pass it on to Councillor Alice.
Well, I just want to know, what about the owner agreed to convey 5% of the land included in the plan to the municipality for park or other public recreational purpose? Okay, so what
That's just a copy. I believe that's just a copy of the original resolution that was, I just included it for reference purposes. So council knows what they was agreed to in the first place, because it was a few years ago now.
Okay, and what about sidewalk?
I don't actually, I believe that the intention was to do the same as is in the portion where you are. I think that council of the day had agreed to the paved shoulder as well.
Well,
Or not council of the day, I believe this council had agreed to the paved shoulder, which was a mirror of the existing on Dover Court.
can I ask something else?
Yes, Councillor Alice.
Will there be ditches there, or like both sides of the street?
I believe there will be ditches on one side of the street. And then that was the design. I don't have the design drawings in front of me. But I believe like the design has been looked at by our public works manager and our managers who are working with the developer and ensuring that the design will meet all of the specifications that are required. Bearing in mind, this was already approved in 2019. So this is just mostly a change of ownership and just a change to the way that the top end of the lot configuration looks like. Those items were already discussed by council back in 2019.
Everybody going around. That's what you're asking. Okay.
Well,
I
okay.
understand.
If I can summarize it, the turnaround will still remain a turnaround. So
No.
people are not going to.
No,
The turnaround will become a through street.
so people will.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that those that are listening, so the portion where people do not have access to Highway 64 Toronto, because it's a turnaround for the property that we bought, will remain as a turnaround, and people will not be able to exit from that area.
No.
They will not be able to exit onto Highway 64 from there. They will be able to go into the street that will be behind.
That's correct, but they're
Yes.
not going to be able to
No.
exit the subdivision to get to Highway 64.
That's
a
correct.
safety issue. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no further question, we have the motion for the red line improvement for or amendment for the subdivision agreement. Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopté. We move on to correspondence and accounts. Yes, Councillor Alice?
Can I put something on the table that it's 8:04? 15 minutes break, please?
So your motion is a recess for 15 minutes. Is there someone to second that motion? Councillor Chris?
It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. At approximately 8:07, a motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess.
Objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopté. Par ici. De retour à 8h21. Merci.
Oh.
Madame Fanny.
Still live.
Après qu'on me sonne, c'est ce qu'on attendait, là.
Hein?
Après qu'on me sonne, on attendait.
Ben oui, j'attendais.
Non.
Okay, Melanie, if I look at my watch, I have 8:23, so we're beyond the 50 minutes, so we're ready to reconvene. We have quorum?
Yep.
Okay. So we're moving on to correspondence and accounts. I need a mover and a seconder for the council's special minutes for July 7th. Conseiller Chris?
I see there's a mistake on that minutes, Madam Mayor, but I'll address it after the move in second.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Leo.
It's moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on the 7th of July, 2022 be adopted as presented. And I see there is in the roll call, there is a member noted that was not present. That should be amended.
Okay, so as amended,
Yes.
any objections to the amendment? Aucune objection? None? Carried? Adopté. We move on to the resolution for the council minutes of July 12. Conseiller Norm as a mover and seconder, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Roberge and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 12th of July, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Questions, comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried? Adopté. Resolution for council's special minutes of July 26. A mover and a seconder. Conseiller Neufman, Conseiller Chris.
Sorry, I missed something. Can I, 1 second? There is a mistake on July the 12th minutes. It says that we deferred the lame duck piece and we didn't defer it. We did do it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, on July the 12th, Councillor Fisher? On that, that was in the resolutions, correct?
Yes, that would have been on number 11, new business. I'm not sure if we did it.
No, we did pass it. That's just an error. Thank you.
But that was carried. So then.
As amended.
As amended?
Yes.
So the mover and the seconder, you're okay with the amendment, voting on the amendment? Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried? Adopté. So now we're going to the special council special minutes of July 26th. Conseiller Neufman as a mover, and I believe Conseiller Liu had lifted his hand.
It is moved by Councillor Norman Roberge and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on July 26, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Questions, comments? I do have a question for our Director of Community Services and EdDev, if still in attendance. Just wondering when council can expect the resolution to approve the contract.
Which contract are you referring to, Madam Mayor?
In the minutes of July 26, there was discussion pertaining to the lease, sorry, not contract, but the lease for Twigs Restaurant. Is that to be expected in the very near future? Is there a timeline?
We're hoping to have that in front of council. Their current lease expires on October 31st. So we're hoping to have that in front of council for approval before then, for sure.
Okay, so we're not delaying in any shape, way, or form the sale of the franchisee to a new operator?
Not to my knowledge, no. 'Cause
Okay,
their current contract still is good till October 31st. We're going to endeavor to have that in front of council shortly.
okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? None? Carried, adoptee. Is there a mover and a seconder for the minutes of August 9th? Conseil Yvonne. Conseil Chris.
Is moved by Counselor Duhane, seconded by Counselor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on August the 9th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Any questions or comments? Quick question pertaining to the actual minutes. The delegation that we got for the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit, council was seeking some physical information, and it was identified in the minutes that the subject matter would be discussed at the first meeting of September. Is it expected that it will come back for our next meeting?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if our Director of Corporate Services can reply to that, can respond.
I have not contacted with them to collect the additional information that council was looking for yet. So that's why it's not on tonight's agenda. When I get the information and we've got the report to bring back to council, then we'll bring it back to council.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's appreciated. And okay, there was another issue here on the agenda for committee of the whole, because that night we had to prioritize issues to be able to comply with our timeline. The capital projects for public works and community services, that was deferred because of time constraint. And it's identified in the minutes. I had hoped that they would have been added to this agenda because I did have some questions, or potentially other members of council would have had some questions. Can there be a short? Yes, Sam.
Our procedural bylaw indicates that public works and community services are held in the second meeting of the month, and it was always our intention to include them at that time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check to make sure. And there's just one additional item, and I'm just looking at it. It had to do with the when Councillor Chris made reference to July 26th that we had adopted the authority during the lame duck period, it reflects that it was adopted in the minutes of August 9th. Was it the same resolution as what was referenced for July for the prior meeting?
And just briefly take a look and see what meeting we actually dealt with it at. It might have gone to the next meeting. I will take a quick peek.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, it's
And
possible. I'm just confused.
Because it is identified under 12.2 that the bylaw to delegate authority during the lame duck period was carried with an amendment. So we did deal with it at our last meeting.
I think the chair might be correct.
Okay, and at that meeting, just a final comment is that we had approved, and I'm just looking exactly where it was, the rehabilitation for a bridge. If someone just wants to help me out here, I think it was 12.4. We approved an expenditure of 462,000 for the structural bridge repair for McDonald and north-south bridges. But also during the meeting, it was, I believe we had a mover and a seconder, because we had the discussion of how the bridge would be paid for. And it was recommended that we would use the funds from John Street Rehabilitation Project earmarked for this year, reallocated for the bridge. But at that meeting, there was also, I believe, a mover and a seconder that we could take the money from reserve, and we voted on the issue of a dedicated reserve specifically for John Street. And that was defeated when we called it to a vote. But there's no reference in it in the minutes because there was a recommendation to have a dedicated reserve for the funds that were earmarked this year to be carried over next year.
Yes.
If the minutes could reflect that.
I'm looking for that item. I'm sorry, could you just tell me what the number was again, Madam Chair?
It was under 12.4. We had the resolution, which was approved to do the expenditure for that.
That is correct. It was left out of the minutes. Apologies.
Okay, because I recall that we voted on it. And that motion for the dedicated reserve was defeated for the rehabilitation for John Street. And that was my.
That's August 9 we're talking about. Right?
That's
There's
correct.
so many. Okay, I do have a question, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Alice.
It's point number 11, notice of motion. I just would like to know the procedure about that, what it said, because if I remember correctly, when at some point of time you had, I don't know why that it was read again, because 2 other times they were not read. It just said that it was withdrawn. And so what is our procedure saying about that? If I can.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so OK. Ça a été passé une fois, une motion de retirer un item sur l'agenda.
Oui.
Ça, c'est une motion que Mme le maire avait mis. Puis, quand on a été retiré, c'était marqué dans les minutes, évidemment, dans le procès verbal. Ça, c'est comprenable que c'est là, mais je ne comprends pas que toute la notion a été répétée comme 50 fois. Je pense que le monde le sait, là. Que la notion est tout écrite. Why? I want to know the procedure because before it was like, for example, item withdrawn by Councilor motion, the name of the motion, but not all the motion again explained, because then it shouldn't maybe have been debate, because there would have been a nice debate on that one. I just see the procedure when somebody withdraw a motion. So what is the procedure about that to when you report it?
I don't think our bylaws, our procedural bylaw speaks to a withdrawal. However, our software will reprint the motion. In any event, it was on the agenda. It wasn't removed from the agenda. It was simply withdrawn at the time when the agenda was adopted. So it wasn't moved, it wasn't defeated, or wasn't carried, it wasn't defeated, it was withdrawn. So that's why it was noted that way.
But that's the same thing. That's the same thing that had happened before, but it was not inscribed, recorded that.
We have new software, and it's a little bit different than the way we used to do it. So the appearance of things is a bit different.
Okay. Thank you.
So the mover and the seconder is okay with the amendment pertaining to adding the motion for the dedicated reserve that was defeated? Okay. Are there any objections pertaining to the amended resolution to adopt the minutes? None, carried, adopted. We need, I need a mover and a seconder for the council's special minutes of August 11th. Sorry, yeah, August 11th. J'ai vu conseiller Léo, conseiller Lefebvre.
It is moved by Councillor Millet and seconded by Councillor Roberge. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on August the 11th be adopted as presented.
Are there any questions or comments? That the, I just need the refresher here. Was that the meeting that basically did not conclude with both resolutions adopted, conformity in the adjournment resolution?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I just want to put it on record that if memory serves me right.
That's correct.
Okay, so that would be an amendment to that. And just a quick question. Do we know when we can anticipate the minutes of those closed sessions that occurred? If we don't have another closed session in the near future, can we anticipate the closed session minutes so we can deal with those and put them out of the way as well?
We haven't had a closed session that hasn't been a special meeting, so if we have another closed, the regular closed meeting. But when we have a meeting called for special, we don't ordinarily add items to an agenda for a special meeting.
Okay, but if I may, if we don't have another special closed meeting, can, whether we have a special closed or just whether we don't have a special closed or we don't have a closed, the minutes for which we were all in attendance for those closed meetings will need to be adopted before the end of our term.
Yeah.
So could it be expected that these closed minutes will be presented to council in the near future?
If we have a closed session on an agenda, unless a special meeting is called specifically for the purpose of so doing.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the direction. It's appreciated. Okay, any objections to, aucune objection concernant la résolution des minutes? None, carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder for the Planning Advisory Committee minutes for June 13 and also for July 11. Conseiller Chris. Seconder. Conseiller Leo.
Moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Malette. Be it resolved that the minutes of the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee held on June the 13th and July the 11th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Any questions, comments, questions, commentaires? None. Any objections? Carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder to receive the second quarter variance financial report for 2022. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Millet. Be it resolved that the 2022 second quarter variance report, April 1st to June the 30th for the municipality of West Nipissing be received.
I'll pass it on to our Director of Corporate Services if she has some comments pertaining to the variance report.
Thank you. So you've had the report with you. As I sort of, caution people, we're mid-year. And, so when you look at the surplus still there, don't think that we get to run off and wildly spend this extra $7 million. This is because all of our final billing goes out in June, and therefore we've got sort of all of our tax revenue recognized. And so, we're in this position always at the mid-year point. So revenue coming in, as we expected. Like I said, there have not been the supplementals, and we sort of knew that coming into it. We do have some supplementals picking up in the later part of the year. Once again, our building and planning department is having just a spectacular year and are going to, again, they just keep growing that revenue line and are going to hit the revenue targets. The good news from a whole revenue point of view is that as we've come out of COVID and looked at having our facilities open and looked at what's going on with community services, is that community services, and it's been such a difficult department to budget for the last several years. And even looking at this year, we weren't really sure what to expect. So we were doing our budget sort of with that, best crystal ball that we had. And people are returning to our facilities and rentals are returning to our facilities. And it's really encouraging both from a community point and obviously from a revenue point to see such good performance in community services and their budgets. Nothing that's troubling overall to, that concerns the entire budget or putting anything or any department at overall risk. Obviously what is has become a big consideration that, we're all keeping an eye on, but it's not putting anyone's budget at risk at this point, is those fuel costs. That the gas costs, both driving with our vehicles and equipment, and the gas costs for heating in the first part of the year has just been astronomical. Now, individually, we're all personally seeing that change at the pumps, which is going to bring a bit of relief. Keep in mind that most of our vehicles are diesel driven, and that does move differently than the price that you and I see for our own vehicles. But certainly fuel costs, we are going to see overages at the end of the year. Absolutely. But right now, it's not a concern as far as threatening anybody's overall budget or the municipality's overall budget. It is just certainly a big concern. Other than that, we talked about the capital updates and things like that, but financially the capital is moving, and at the end of the second quarter, things are kind of really just starting to get rolling in public works and things like that. So nothing really significant to report there. But overall, it looks a lot more like, and I think I used it in the description, kind of a normal budget, that we look a lot more like we did pre-COVID. And that, things just look smoother and look predictable. And again, from a financial point, I find it a really encouraging position to be in at this point of the year.
Thank you. Great news. Are there any questions or comments? I just two quick questions. When I look at the budget for mayor and council, did that include the cost per election, or election is under general government?
Election is under general government.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. And there was also expenditures for our integrity commissioner for half the year. Could it be the IC did not make a formal presentation to council as normally done because of the actual bylaw, where there's a clause pertaining to a certain timeline prior to an election. But with the expenditures that were done for IC and the report that had been submitted and shared to all members of council, will that report be available to the public for viewing, like it's been done every year?
It's on our website.
Thank you. That clarifies. And my final question is animal control. Animal control, we normally had a contract for 5 years. Now this year, we haven't renewed a yearly contract for animal control so far. Would that be correct?
That's correct. The RFP is actually in circulation right now.
Okay. Is there a possibility, well, maybe I should ask the question. Le niveau de service, the actual service that's being provided for animal control, has it changed? Or is it still the same as what it was last year and the prior years?
The service hasn't changed. We just went to a month to month with our supplier or our contractor from last year. So we just kind of went on a month to month with North Bay Humane Society until, so that the RFP is in circulation now. And that will lead us to either a renewed contract or a new provider or what level of service comes with it on the proposal.
Okay. And will this be coming up before the end of this term, or is that going to be brought up to the new council?
No, the closing on the RFP is in September. I don't have the date right in front of me, but the closing on the RFP is in September. So it will be able to come back to this council once we've reviewed the RFP. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? None? Okay. So coming back to the motion, if there's no objection, carried at defeat. Okay, now we move on to the various boards. Mover and a seconder for the minutes of the Nipissing West Police Services Board, March 23rd. Mover, Conseiller Chris, seconder, Conseiller Norm.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Roberge. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following boards and committees be received. West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment, April 8th, May 9th, June 3rd, and July 13th. West Nipissing Public Library Board, April 13th, May 12th. Au Chateau Board of Management, April 27, May 18, and West Nipissing Police Service Board, March 23rd.
Any questions or comments?
Question.
Conseiller Alice?
But for the service, the police service board, I have a question about number E, which is billing model. It said on June 6th, we will be starting our year 3 and the last year of the current billing cycle. As of next year, we changed the new billing model, which is based on the number of property within West Nipissing. I'm not sure if it's an error, but it was always based on the number of houses in West Nipissing. What the change is supposed to change is the call for services. So it's really not clear. And I was wondering if we could have, because if it starts in June, we should know, are they going to be charging for call for services and how are they charging for houses, if there's any difference, because we didn't, I think it would be nice that people would know that information, but I think there's something there that's missing. It's the houses, it's standard. That's what they start in the contract with every house, and there's price attached to that. But the call for services is different. It was not, they had estimated, and but now they're going to charge by call for services. Am I wrong, Councilor Fisher? You
Conseiller,
Sorry, may I?
Conseiller Chris, yes.
You're perfectly correct. There is a base properties and it will be called for service. And I believe Elisa is our Director of Corporate Services is much better versed on this one. Thank you.
I'll pass it on to a Director of Corporate Services.
So actually that's not correct right now. So the first 3 full calendar years plus the stub year from June 2019. So we had to go June 2019 to the end of the year, then 3 full calendar years of not calls for service, not based on household. It was on an FTE model. So the full-time equivalent. So that's what we've been billed on, is the FTE model based on 22 officers for the municipality. In 2023, we roll to the base price based on the number of households, and they have a calculation to account for the commercial stuff, plus the calls for service. So that's the 2 parts that start in 2023. And, you know, so we have a new contract that will come before council to look at what the stuff is. They always give us, you know, kind of the estimate based on what as we get towards the end of the year, here's your estimated for next year. But 2023 is the first year where we do anything that has anything to do with households at all. Up to this point, we've been on the FTE model, and that was always the deal. It was 3 years, 3 full calendar years of FTE model, and then we roll to the calls for service, which is a household and base household plus calls for service.
So the actual date reflected June 6th would be incorrect.
No, that was our transition date. So they started it at that point. We run for all of 2019 because that's just a stub year. It's not a full calendar year. And then we roll 3 full calendar years to get us to the end of 2022. And then we move to the calls for service model.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, okay, but I understand what you're saying, and I mean, because when they did a proposal, they based it on something. They had to base it on something, so, but the new model will be based on houses and will be based on call for services.
In 2023 and going forward, that's correct, yes.
Yeah, I know that. So,
Yeah.
but do they have an idea, or they will proceed, or they don't know yet?
I beg your pardon, Councillor Senecal?
They start in January 23 or June 23?
January 23.
Okay, so you must have, did they give you like kind of an idea what it would be? Nothing.
I don't have the estimates for next year yet. No, I've seen some, but I don't have the estimates for next year. But I expect that we will receive them shortly. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your
Yeah, well,
question?
yes.
Okay. Any further questions to any of the minutes? Open, carried, adopted. To receive the check register report for the month of April, May, and June. The mover and the seconder. Mover and the seconder, please.
It is moved by Councillor Roberge and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the accounts payable check register sheets for the months of April, May, and June 2022 be received.
Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, I do, and, but do I have April or, yes, April?
Councillor Alice,
74, number 74, it's, the check supplier's name is Weber Simpson. I figure it's a law firm. I find it different because I know you changed, and clear with me, where's Madame, Madame Alicia is right there. When you said clear, what does it mean? Like it's passed, or it's done, or the check is cash, or?
The check is cashed. Yeah, it's cleared the bank.
Okay.
We've got that far. Yeah.
Okay, so is there possible, without knowing in detail what it was for, like 7,900 and did it happen in April or it happened before? So.
Weaver Simmons does a lot of our insurance work.
Okay.
And so that's very likely what it was. As far as what period, it probably was from periods prior to April and paid in April.
Okay, thank you. And I do have May, number 15, which is, where is me? Oh, well, I got the detail. It's number 15, like I said, then it's.
what number? Excuse me.
It's number 15, it's the same. Okay, those are that's the same, it's 11,900. So every month you're paying that, there's that's the same name. The first one for May, I guess, was almost 8,000, the other one was almost 12,000. So, okay, the explanation is the same, no? Well, that's what
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Because at least the month of April, it was Weaver Simmons.
yeah?
Now, this one here is Wallbridge.
Okay, now this, okay, so I missed, okay.
So it's not the same name.
No, okay, sorry, my mistake, thank you. April was Weber Simmons, 7796, and then for May 15, it was Wallbridge. So then I'm sorry, I mixed up the month with because I had to take note. So Weber Simmons was, do you recall in big, and just, I'll have to go into detail, but the other one you explained.
Wallbridge also does some insurance claim work for us, not as much as Weaver Simmons, and so that would be insurance claim work.
Okay, and the last one that you had in May and not May, June, May and June also is the $5,000 for checkmate to Dépotoir de la Vigne. So.
Which line number?
That's 144 in June.
So they're the contractor that manages the living landfill site for us, and they invoice us for their services.
Okay, so that the check was made to, that was not made to Dépotoir, it was made to somebody else. So we
No,
need.
it was made to the Dépotoir.
Okay. So okay.
Any further questions, Councilor Denis?
Yes, I'm just wondering, who is the living debattoir? Who's like, we've never seen that before. I mean, is that a board there too, or is it just, who is it?
So you would have seen them for the last 4 years, because they certainly have been our contractor for the last 4 years, and they're the contractor that runs the living landfill site for us.
What's their name?
What's their name? Department of Living. They're a corporation. That's their corporation. They are a contractor. They are Department of Living Landfill Incorporated.
So at amalgamation, for those who aren't aware, there were a bunch of corporations, nonprofit corporations in the former unincorporated areas, and that's how M&R ran their sites. The council of the day agreed to continue those arrangements, and there was a variety of landfill corporations, Living, River Valley, Kipling, Muskasung, I believe are the four. We chose to close the one in Crystal Falls. That has been the arrangement that has continued on. We adjusted the Kipling landfill one recently, and but the rest still have the same arrangement. And we are in the process, though, I will let you know that we are in the process of looking at how we adjust those and make them all municipal going forward.
Supplement.
Thank you for the update, but I think what I've been hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Sorry. Yes, Councilor Denis?
Supplement, I just, how do we get the people involved with that board or corporation? Do they report to the West Nipissing, or they must report to somebody? Who's in charge? Is there a CEO? What's the scoop? Wow.
So I mean, it's a corporation the same as Ed Sagan and Sons, Deep Construction, the Tribune, Max Office Supplies. It's a corporation that the same as the other, and they have employees, and they pay their employees, and they pay their contractors, and they have all of that.
Okay, but who's in charge of that corporation? We must know who's in charge of the corporation to handle all these issues.
Not offhand. We've had some key different people that would.
So we're giving money away to who?
Well, there's yeah. Well, listen, being implication. Well, if that's going to be the way it's going to go, Madam Mayor, this is an item for another agenda. Thank you.
Okay, but I think it was requested through you or CEO. The issue of the River Valley Waste Management and the issue of the Living, the Département de Living, it's to find out who are the individuals that sit on there, and their role, and who gets paid for what. That's what we wanted to know, and hopefully that can come back to council in 2 weeks from now.
We will tell you how we cut the checks to those suppliers, absolutely. Section 8.2 actually requests that it's done prior to Friday if you want to report. So I'd appreciate a request, or if you're telling me, then it should be on prior to Friday and not the Monday and Tuesday as indicated.
So we should get a report for River Valley then?
Why are you interested in River Valley, Councillor? You were talking about Living, or did you want every one of them, or just the one?
Well, I did put in a request for River Valley, and that's before the Friday now.
You put it in late.
I would expect River Valley to be on the agenda.
You put it in late though, eh? Yeah.
Well, it's still in force.
Okay, so we'll
next meeting.
We'll conclude this portion because it's been requested. It's been requested different mechanism, even throughout budget of solid waste. But if we can have it at our next meeting to give us an insight of these corporations, who are the members that we're dealing with?
Well, we don't have that information though necessarily, right? We have how we disperse those checks and to who. That's in our accounting system, and it's a continuation. So we'll endeavor to do what we can given that our accounting system that we have. You know, other than that, we don't, you know, like council, like the director of corporate services, we don't know the directors of our 3,300 suppliers if they're incorporated.
But we must have a contact. I'm not going to dwell on the subject matter, but I understand
We'll
we're,
provide you what we have is what I indicated to you, Madam Mayor.
well, that would be appreciated. We'll stay tuned in
Thanks
2
very
weeks
much.
from now. Get
Yeah.
details. Merci
You're
beaucoup.
welcome. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments? None? So coming back to the resolution, to approve the check register reports. If there's no further comments or questions. This is not to be construed negatively. When I saw this report, I don't recall that we had a discussion at council to change the format from disbursements to a check register when the checks are being cashed or cleared. So I'm a little bit confused why the format has changed and why we're getting notification of when the checks are cleared pertaining to disbursements. Was it the same meaning for both reports and just a change in name of the report? I'm just going to pass it to our Director of Corporate Services.
Well, you will recall that I did let council know that the prior report that we used to get, I simply cannot get anymore. And they were doing some updates to reporting, and I had some hopes we might be able to get things back, but I can't. That report, I cannot generate the report that council had before. And so I did the check register because that, for municipalities that still do this, and there aren't a lot of municipalities that do, but for municipalities that still do this, a check register is what they provide. The cleared, not cleared, that was just mostly so you can see checks that may have been canceled or things like that. If you can see that all the checks are in order and what they are. The cleared, not cleared, I can eliminate that column. It doesn't really matter. But the prior report that council used to get simply doesn't exist. I can't produce that anymore.
I remember mentioning it.
Yeah, and I remember that, but I guess maybe, is it that when we issue payment for an invoice, it's shown on this report and the cleared is just, or is it only when the check is cleared that it shows?
No, you'll see, the checks are in order, and you'll see a couple that are indicated as just issued. So yes, when we issue them, these are the checks that were issued in April, all the checks and all the EFT that was issued in April, and then all the checks and EFT that were issued in May, and it just rolls along like that. So it's all the ones that were issued in that month.
Yeah, you got to
Okay,
wait.
thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Madam
Mayor, Madam Mayor, if I may, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what Mrs. Craddock is saying, if it's not approved by our auditors, it goes through them. So I think everything is fine.
Yeah, I'm not implying anything is not fine. I'm just trying to understand the prior format to the new format and the issue of cleared. And I just wanted an explanation when we get an invoice. Is it reflected on that? And I got the explanation from our Director of Corporate Services, which was well explained. So I just was seeking clarification, Conseiller Leo. Thank you. Conseiller Notman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a bit confused. I heard the word that we approve, but here I think we're receiving the check register. We're not approving it. I might be missed up there.
I'll ask just for the resolution, maybe. Yeah, it should be.
I think I heard both,
No, it says receive the check register
but I
reports.
think the motion, somebody said approve. So that's why I was confused.
I'll ask the clerk.
It says be received.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to confirm that.
Perfect. So if there's no further questions, no objections, carried, adopté. On procède avec la part nouvelle, new business, the appointment to 2022 municipal election joint compliance audit committee.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
I think the item, the addendum item comes before that.
610.
Yeah,
oh, okay, my apologies. I was so much focusing on addendum. Okay, we all read the correspondence that we received from our MP and probably heard in the news what's being proposed as far as reducing a voice for Northern Ontario, and also looking at a realignment boundaries for Nickel Belt. And what it means for our area, one of the elements which will be detrimental, for our area, there's a mechanism for separate East Municipality Association, which includes Seychelles, Marks Day Warren, Killarney, and West Nipissing. Often we have similar issues that we join together for either funding or whatever. But just to give you a heads up, that the Separate East Municipality Association is having a meeting in 2 days. We'll be discussing this. We'll bring forward a resolution, a recommendation. We'll bring forward a recommendation to council for council to consider. A, to voice the opposition of losing a seat, and B, voicing an opposition of diviser le secteur auquel on est si près situé de d'autres municipalités auprès de nous autres, puis de regarder à garder l'union entre ces 4 municipalités. Parce que ce qui est proposé comme c'est là, c'est une division. Rivière des Français irait avec Nickel Belt, puis Marks Day Warren, puis Saint-Charles irait avec l'autre juridiction qui serait avec Nipissing. Donc, je voulais sensibiliser le conseil là-dessus, et en même temps, the time-sensitive issue is pending on what council decides in 2 weeks. I'm sure that we're going to want to echo that we're not in favor of losing a seat, a voice for Northern Ontario. We would have to register by September 25th to make sure that we make it known, because the consultation process is very prescriptive as far as timeline. And I don't want us to miss the boat for any opportunity to voice any of our concerns, which would be a disadvantage to the municipality of West Nipissing and a major disadvantage to Northern Ontario. Conseiller Chris and Conseiller Darvin.
So I think St. Charles, it did say that they're gonna try and ask for an extension, because as well, this is going on while municipal elections are going on. And they have, you know, this cultural francophone argument that we're more aligned that way. And perhaps we should also write a letter. And I would add that, so, you know, the easy one is that Northern Ontario's 88% of the landmass, and, you know, even further north, if they cut down one of the things they're proposing, it creates a piece of property that's like the size of Germany, and it can't well be managed. But they're moving on. They're going by sort of population, and I don't think you should they're trying to take one from us and put it down south, and I don't think that's necessarily the right way to think about it, because actually Northern Ontario, Canada's like a resource-based economy, and Northern Ontario, we got all the resources. So, like, you know, we got trillions of dollars worth of resources up here, and then those need representation as well as the people. And the other thing to consider is the environmental aspect of it. We've got all the trees, all the water, and you know, you're taking away stewards of those things as well. So to my mind, their logic is to redistribute by population, but I think it misses the mark, and there are other arguments as to why we shouldn't leave. And I completely agree that we should be writing, you know, our opinion and saying that we disagree and we don't want it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Conseiller Chris, and those are probably all elements that hopefully each municipality within the Separate East Municipality Association will endorse, and that it taps into all the elements that you've described. Conseiller Darvin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've read Mr. Sari's letter with deep concerns, and I think we have to put a very strong argument because personally, I think we should be adding a seat, not taking one away, at least. If the province can, have more, 3 more seats than the Fed, and I mean, that just shows you the difference in perspective. Also, like Mr. Councillor Fisher just mentioned, Northern Ontario is bigger than a lot of European countries where they have a whole government just for that area. It's been, past practice that most of our natural resources seems to travel down south where they make lots of money with it, but very little comes back up north. So that's another issue I have. And also, I think some of those ridings are so big, I don't know how one of our representatives can actually service it properly. You go to Toronto, Ottawa, those places, some MPs have only one city block to cover. They can walk, in one afternoon, they go over their riding. Here, to get from one end to the other, you have to book a jet and fly. And the present-day government says to save on fuel, but if you want to service your constituent, you have to drive a day and a half to get to the other end. It doesn't make any sense. And one thing is, the only place they will have public hearing is in Timmins. So depending on what the other association and what transpired, I would personally support that the municipality authorize the delegation of at least one member, one person, to attend in person in Timmins and really talk to them eye to eye and say, listen, we don't support that.
Okay, thank you. Conseil Dan and Conseil Alice.
It's up like.
The only comment that I was going to make is the comment that, to support Councillor Roberge when he stated that the public inquiry, the public consultation is only one place and it's in Timmins. If we decide to send somebody the paper that we're going to submit on the reasons why we want to keep this writing intact has to be written and submitted before we go to the consultation. So I think the thing is if we're going to do that, then somebody would have to sit down, strategically write what our points are, and that somebody would attend in person to deliver the paper that we've written before. It does take some work, but I think it's worth it. And strategically, that would be the way to do it. It's something that, province has 12, we'll be down to 9, and they're basing it on 100,000 population, I think 110. And unfortunately, we're getting caught with the numbers game again. And I think that's, we've been well represented by our MP, and I think we should put all our energy into moving forward and ensuring that we do provide, our disbelief that first they're going to do this and that they even going to think about it. Another thing that's interesting is that this board, the commission, there's not one representative from Northern Ontario. The last time they tried to do that, we had Mr. Vallon from North Bay that was on the board. And you know that this is a standalone board, Elections Canada. And the thing is that that's another thing we should be saying. We should be saying that we're being disadvantaged in the fact that none of the reps, none of the people on this board, the people that are going to be deciding this, reside in Northern Ontario. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Question, the committee you're talking about that will be meeting from West Nipissing,
the Sudbury East Municipality Association is meeting this upcoming Thursday.
So are we part of that?
Yes, we are. We have an ally of this municipality, myself, along with the other mayors of the other municipality. Now, there's already a draft resolution that has highlighted many of the points that were identified right now. It was also reviewed by our MP and with feedback from the MP. Now, that resolution is being tabled at the meeting Thursday, and making sure that nothing is being missed. And the plan would be that the resolution afterwards, once adopted, and identifying all the elements that have been identified as concern, I'll make sure that a copy is sent to our clerk, that it be tabled on our agenda in 2 weeks from now, which is going to be September 20. Je vais me donner le 6 aujourd'hui, le 14, septembre le 20, puis la date d'échéance pour l'inscription pour transmettre à la commission est le 25. Donc, on ne manque pas le bateau, on rencontre l'échéance, puis on s'assure que tous les points critiques qui ont été identifiés ce soir sont reflétés dans la résolution et adoptés par le Conseil pour être en mesure de pouvoir poursuivre à la prochaine étape.
OK, je peux-tu compter?
Oui, Conseil Lise?
OK, ça répond à ma première question. Puis, je crois que si on a des représentants sur le comité comme c'est là, qu'on ne peut pas penser parce que nous autres, c'est que c'est une autre va tout faire. Fait qu'on se doit de continuer à travailler en groupe. We need to keep on working with that group. And on top of that, not only that a lot of things will happen, but we're going to lose money because they usually go by, if you've got 9, they separate a pile of money sometime by region. So we might lose big time if we do that. Cannot afford to lose one seat. So I think we should wait till the recommendation come. If there's anything missing, well, we can also be able to add it. But I mean, I don't think we should. We got to work together, and that's what we're doing right now. And if our MP had approved what's going on and go to look at it, I said, what else can we do? So.
Well, if we have a copy of the resolution in our package and the information that we got from our MP and everything that has been discussed, I'm sure that with all our heads together, we'll make sure that everything is being noted on that resolution.
Councilor Chris has his hand up the last 5 minutes.
No, I know Conseil Leo. I'm directing it to Conseil Chris now.
So I just because things got said, so there is a virtual hearing for Northern Ontario, and I guess this is Zoom, like we do it, and that's October 25th. And I believe the public is also allowed to sign up for that. I think my wife did. And the other thing I was going to add, so FONAM made a recommendation to keep the 10 representatives, and there's also an additional Indigenous representative that they're recommending, and I think that's already in the slates. And another argument, I think, with 10 representatives, there's still a lot of places in Northern Ontario where they haven't got clean drinking water. So, let's fix these things before they take our voices away. Thank you.
And I'm happy that you bring that up, Conseil Chris, because we should be promoting the fact that even every resident in Northern Ontario should be voicing their concern, the fact that they're proposing to reduce and eliminate one MP position for the North.
They should make a virtual vote.
Well, they should, make sure, because this is part of the consultation. So are we okay to make sure that the resolution from SEMA is provided to our clerk and that it comes back at our next meeting so we can make sure that we're comfortable with the resolution that we're going to be voting on? Okay with that?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now we move on to new business, the resolution for the Municipal Election Joint Compliance Audit Committee for the appointment. Mover and seconder, Conseil Bon. Seconder, Conseil Normand.
Can't hear you, Mel.
You're on mute.
My apologies. It is moved by Councillor Jim and seconded by Councillor Berge. Whereas bylaw number 2022-71 establishes the 2022 Municipal Elections Joint Compliance Audit Committee for the municipalities of French River, Killarney, Marks Day, Warren, St. Charles, and West Nipissing. And whereas each respective municipality must appoint one volunteer member to the 2022 Municipal Elections Joint Compliance Audit Committee, Be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality appoints Dan Olivier for the 2022 Municipal Elections Joint Compliance Audit Committee for carrying out the necessary responsibilities of sections 88, 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37 of the Municipal Elections Act.
And for the audience that is listening to this, what is specifically the role of the appointee to the Joint Compliance Audit Committee? If you can just summarize it, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the role of the volunteer, along with the volunteers in the other communities, is to adjudicate any complaints on election finance irregularities. In the event that we someone would file a complaint regarding election finances of any candidate, this committee would look into the matter and make an adjudication.
Okay, thank you. Any objections? Aucune objection? None?
Okay.
Adopted, carried. Authorize the renewal contract of the West Nipissing Lynx Hockey Club. Mover and the seconder. Conseil Bon, Conseil Alice.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that the mayor and the treasurer be authorized to sign a lease agreement renewal with the West Nipissing Lynx Hockey Club for a 3-year term expiring at the end of 2025.
Question to our Director of Corporate Services. Any changes to the actual contract other than the timelines?
Actually, if I can direct that to the Director of Community.
Sorry, I said Director of Corporate Services. I meant Director of Community Services. My apologies.
The terms of the agreement are essentially the same as we had in previous term or years. You're right, except for the dates and the term of this agreement.
Any questions or comments? None? Carried. Adopted. Authorization to dispose of surplus equipment, fire services, water and wastewater. Mover and seconder, Conseil Bon. Seconder, please, Conseil Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that certain equipment described be declared as surplus for the West Nipissing Municipality, and be it further resolved that Council hereby authorizes the disposition of the following equipment: one 1998 HME pumper and one 2012 Chevrolet truck.
Any questions or comments? None? Carried. Adopted. Mover and seconder for the award for surface treatment of Olivier Road, Conseil Bon. Conseil Laflamme.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Roberge. Be it resolved that the award for the surface treatment of Olivier Road be awarded to Duncor Enterprises, Inc., having submitted a bid of $64,710.10 plus HST, meeting all the requirements.
Any questions or comments? Quick question to our Director of Corporate Services. Is it within budget for the project?
Yes.
Thank you. Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopted. Resolution to approve a no-cut exemption at 12 Rivière Street, Verner. Mover and a seconder, Conseil Laflamme, Conseil Bon.
It is moved by Councillor Roberge and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas Council considered a no-cut exemption request by the owners of 12 Rivière Road in Verner, be it resolved that Council agrees with the requested exemption.
Okay, through our Chair of Public Works, with the documentation that we got, we have a recommendation that it strongly recommend conforming to our current policy. What does that mean?
I think they have to.
Well, Madam Mayor, we're allowing them to cut the road when the road was redone in 2019, I think, and they're requesting a cut, an exception to the no cut zone. And unfortunately, if we allow that to happen again, then we're not following our procedures as per regulations.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I understand Public Works concern, and 98% of the time I would concur with it. But this is a special case that I see. Is these people have acquired this property. They have to change system. They're going to natural gas because the system that was in the house before cannot be used anymore. So if we don't let them connect to the natural gas, they're going to freeze this winter. And I cannot vote to let anybody freeze because of a policy. I know, and it's just cutting on the side of the road. They're not destroying the road. I know the concern, public one, and it's not a road that has lots of heavy traffic that damages. I think there are 6 houses. It's a very limited residential street. No, a car in the morning, a couple of cars in the morning, in the afternoon. I think we can survive with that. And I cannot support that we deprive somebody of heat in the winter because of one of our policies. Thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, we did so many in the last couple of years that we approve. I think when it's confirmed to the bylaw we have is they have to put a deposit if there's, when to make sure that because they need to be paid. And then on top of that, they will have to pay a deposit if it's not paid the right way or there's any damage, they will have to repair it. But I mean, we did Amani this year, so and I said so at the beginning, when we approved the first one, well, then we have to go, and there's good reason for everybody that wants to do it. So my recommendation, and I stated before, I think every building permit that has been provided, tout ce qui est donné, ça devrait, des règlements devraient être là, c'est quoi qu'ils peuvent faire, qu'est-ce qu'ils peuvent pas faire. Je sais que c'est difficile à faire, là, mais...
Let's stick to the subject matter.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It goes with the subject matter when I'm there.
Okay.
So I will approve it because we approved the other one with the condition to follow the procedure bylaw.
Conseil Denis?
Yes, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think this is a new build. I can't see it, but if it's not, I guess maybe they're having issues with their heating. And really they're in a situation that they need to replace the heating system, unless it is a new build. I don't think so. So I think we should approve it, but I think the next council should look at this bylaw that we have no cut policy. I think that's for the birds. It's detrimental to business and improvement. Every so often we get these requests. I don't know, at least like Councillor Lee said, let's have a deposit on doesn't seem like a big cut anyways, but let's take a deposit and let them heat this winter. So I would approve this. All right, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Conseil Chris?
So I really dislike these ones because, we do have a policy. The other thing I'd like to point out, we do have a photograph where that gas line is, and it looks fairly innocuous, and it looks like it'd be outside the footprint of the car, but, they're gonna dig up still a third of the way across the road. And it's a hairy thing, and I never know what to make of these, and we definitely, as Councillor Senecal said, we definitely need to revisit this policy in really, I don't know, firm it up, figure something out on it. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, Conseil Rowley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I was looking at the photograph. They're taking just a little side of the road. It's not in the real well. I've always agreed to when there was a few months left on the no cut policy. This one has 2 years remaining. If they do what is shown on the photograph, then I'm in agreement of it, but no more than what they're showing now. So, or may I ask if I can ask the line painting, is it showing where the line is, or is it showing where they're going to be as far as they're going to be cutting on the pavement? Does anybody have that answer?
I would have to direct the question to either a CEO or Director of Corporate Services.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Oh, Conseiller Bon,
it is where the line is.
that's where the line, the natural
Yeah,
gas line
that's where it is, yeah.
So that does provide your answer, Conseiller Burley.
Yes, and in this case, that means they're going to be digging 2 to 1, and depending on how deep that line is, they're going to be taking half of that road out. Because if the line is 5 feet or 3 feet, they're going to. If it's 3 feet down, they'll go 6 feet wide, and they'll be right in that highway. So we have a policy that says no cutting. This is way too much. If that's where the line is, that's way too much. We should, but this bylaw needs to be revisited because we have a bylaw saying no cut. So why have it and then we just undo it? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Leo, I think we're past the curfew.
It's
Can we make
9:33.
Can we make an
Yeah.
amendment to continue?
Okay, thank you for the reminder. I was just waiting for us to deal with this resolution before going with the resolution for extension of curfew. So I'm just going to call the resolution for the no cut policy, for the request for the cut on Rivière Street, for cutting the asphalt to allow the request for natural gas.
I would like to report.
Okay, so it's a recorded vote for that resolution.
Councillor Duhaime,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
No,
Councillor Larrabee,
No, I can't.
Councillor Millet, Councillor Millet,
Can't hear you, Leo.
t'entends pas.
Sorry, yes. I was mute, sorry.
Councillor Berge,
Yes.
Councillor Ravita,
Yes.
Councillor Denis Senecal,
Yes.
Councillor Lee Senecal,
Yes.
Mayor Savage,
Yes.
it's carried.
Okay, now we have a mover, Conseiller Leo, need a seconder for the extension of curfew, Conseiller Bon.
2 motions left. So. That's bad.
I'm sorry,
No, it's okay, yeah.
I've got, it's approximately 9:35. A motion was tabled to extend the meeting beyond the regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
That's correct. And that would be Conseiller Leo as the mover and Conseiller Bon as the seconder. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 2/3.
Yeah.
Well, okay, there's Conseiller Bon, Conseiller Norm, Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Chris, puis Conseiller Dan avait pas levé la main la première fois, mais c'est correct là. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's carried.
Okay.
Because you need 2/3.
Okay, go now.
Okay, so that's approved. So now we have to authorize the support to the Royal Canadian Legion for snow removal services. Mover and seconder. Conseiller Bon, Conseiller Lise.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that Council authorizes the continued financial support to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 225 with respect to covering expenses for snow removal services for the upcoming 2022-2023 winter season.
Any questions or comments? I have a quick question that maybe our Chair of Public Works can answer. When we do the clearing of other parking lots, is it the municipality or do they hire a contractor, i.e. from Madam
Mayor, we work within our budget, and if we have to, we will hire another contractor to do it.
Okay,
within our
but the reason I'm asking is because the Royal Canadian Legion do hire a contract and they submit the invoice to the municipality. Are they the only one that submit an invoice to the municipality and that our employees do the other parking lots? Because otherwise we'd need a resolution to add all of them for which we approve to pay their invoices. That's why I'm asking the question.
Who you asking the question to me, Madam Mayor?
Well,
Oh.
whoever, yes, Conseil Yvon, are they the only one that we do snow, that we pay the invoice for snow clearing of their driveway? Do we have other locations?
Madam Craddock would probably know more.
You're right.
Your hand.
I'll direct it to, well, not to be rude, our Director of Corporate Services.
So we have in the past done the, I think it is the Golden Ages Club. There is one other one that we have in the past, but it comes to council for a resolution. So we don't have a lot of these arrangements. When they come looking for assistance from the municipality, it generally is that they've got a contractor and then we reimburse them the expenses of their contractor. We don't have municipal staff go and do any of these ones.
Okay. But the one in field for doing the parking lot, is it our employees or do they hire a contractor? And I know that afterwards we had the Golden Age Club in River Valley as well. So I thought if we're hiring contractors to clear, if they are hiring contractors and we're paying the invoices, I was just wondering to make sure that none would be omitted and that they'd all be on the same resolution. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so it's not that we pay the contractors invoices. They submit the invoice, we pay the organization.
That's right.
And the organization pays the contractors, but it's on a as request. So if we haven't got the requests from the other organizations yet, that's why they're not all on one resolution. It's just when they put the request in, we bring the request to council.
Okay.
That's pretty quick.
Okay. C'est encore, je suis un peu confuse là, mais je vais pas rétablir la réunion, mais ça veut dire if we don't have an invoice to pay, is it right to assume that our crew is doing the clearing? I'm wrong. That would be an incorrect assumption?
I'm not sure that I
That's
understand your
not-
question either, Madam Mayor.
I
That's
guess,
not an incorrect assumption. Sometimes we provide in-kind services and and there's some areas that we plow directly. Other areas, it's been proven to not be within our ability to schedule it, given the other pressures in the area. And so we found that this is a more advantageous. If we're going to be providing a contribution to an organization, that's why you have the resolution before you. Those others that we plow and it's an ongoing, or we don't need an annual commitment from council, we just continue doing it.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Carried, adopted. The next one is to amend the traffic parking bylaw. Mover and a seconder. Conseil Yvon, Conseil Gillot.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-89 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-60, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Are there any questions or comments pertaining to the amendment? None? Carried, adopted. Okay, so as far as mayor's report, what I want to take advantage, c'était de souhaiter une bonne rentrée scolaire à tous les enseignants We had two people, secondary. So already summer is near the end. It's already school year, so best wishes to everyone. And on that note, we'll be reconvening for another regular meeting in 2 weeks from now. Is there a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw?
It is moved by Councillor Norman Roberge and seconded by Councillor Lee Senegal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-90, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality, to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 6th of September 2022, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? None carried as received.
It is moved by Councillor Norman Roberge and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on September 6th be adjourned.
Objection carried. Bonsoir. Good evening.